Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. All about nutrition from your favorite dietitian. Everything you need to digest in your mind. Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. Making you healthier one bite at a time. With Tony. Woo.
Hello and welcome to the Tips with Tony podcast. I'm Tony Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time. I'm actually super excited to talk to you guys today about this topic because I would say 90% of the people who listen to this podcast either personally struggles with PMS, or they get their period, or they know somebody who gets their period. Maybe they're raising a teenage daughter and things are starting to get a little bit moody in the household. It's so important to know about how our bodies react, how our bodies naturally go through hormonal fluctuations, and how our bodies are, and understanding the science behind it so that we then can decide what to do with it, how to handle it. All right. So I'm going to pre-warn you that this episode is going to be a little bit longer, and it is going to be more of a educational nutrition sort of a lesson. I am going to talk a lot of science. I'm going to talk about some terms, but I promise you, and I hope that I say it in a way that gets you to understand your body. And if I nerd out or geek out and I become a little bit of a science nerd on you too much, please email me, tipswithtony@gmail.com, or message me on Instagram at tips_with_Tony with an I, and kind of let me know, you need clarity, and that will help me know kind of how to speak about when I decide to do a deeper dive into nutrition science, to kind of, say it in a way that's you're going to be able to digest it. No pun intended. All right. So anyways, with that said, if you are a woman and you are between the ages, I don't know, I got my first period at 11. It was a little bit early. But menstruation can start as early as 9. Some girls at 10. But anyways, you've been getting your period since you were, 10, 11 years old. Maybe you got it later, 12, 13, whatever. And you're probably going to have it until you're late 40s, and then premenopause starts, and then menopause starts, and then by the time you're in your late 50s, it should be something that you don't have to worry about, which is pretty amazing. If you don't have to worry about something that comes every 21 to 34 days. The average woman will menstruate on average every 28 days. So with that said, I first want you to understand your period and basically understand that it happens in 2 phases. The first phase is and by the way, before I keep talking, one thing that I never was good at in college, and I'm still not good at today, is pronunciation, especially when it comes to science terms or words that I just, they don't come up in your everyday regular conversation. So I'm not great at that. So I probably will mispronounce. I can't even say that. I probably will not pronounce some of these words correctly. So please, if you are a dietitian or in the medical field and you're listening to me and you're like, oh, wow, Tony, you totally butchered that, I'm asking you to give me a little bit of grace here. All right. Anyways, so the first phase of your menstrual cycle, so this is basically day 1 to 13, right before ovulation. And that's the follicular. See, screwed it up. Follicular. Oh my God, this is really bad. I apologize in advance. The follicular phase. Wow. Anyways. Nothing happens there. That's not PMS. The PMS happens during the luteal phase, and that's from about day 14. You might be ovulating. That's why it really depends on your cycle. But say 15 to 28 if we're doing that. So from day 15 to 28, that's when your estrogen increases, your progesterone increases, your body is getting ready for pregnancy, and that's where all the PMS symptoms tend to happen. And I want to just let you know that this is a completely normal fluctuation. The difference is that some people are more sensitive to others. And so that sensitivity can manifest in the extreme physical or psychological symptoms that occur with PMS. So the physical symptoms are things like bloating, fluid retention, constipation, diarrhea, joint and muscle aches. I know I personally get crazy backaches. Breast tenderness, abdominal cramping, headaches, fatigue, and the obvious, food cravings. So we're going to talk about food cravings in a second, but let's now just also talk about some of the emotional disturbances or psychological symptoms that are often commonly occur during PMSing, okay? So, but like, I just feel like overwhelmed even just talking about this. Like, being a woman is hard. God was like, hey, let's just make the woman's life just like so much harder. Let's just like increase all of the things that can make her feel crazy all of the time because she doesn't have enough to handle. Let's just like make her like a hormonal mess. Oh man. Anyways, so psychological symptoms, anxiety, depression, sleep disturbances, mood swings, hostility. You might be a little bit more short-tempered with your family. You might have difficulty concentrating. You might be able to cry on the spot. You might really just lose interest in anything that you used to enjoy. Like, it's crazy. It really is crazy, but it's also normal. So I want to be clear that this is so normal. It's normal fluctuations that happen. However, some people are more sensitive than others. And regardless of where you fall in that sensitivity, I want to make sure that we do our absolute best to minimize these symptoms because, I mean, it's obvious. When these symptoms are present, we're not able to focus on what we really want to be focusing on. And also, I don't believe that, most of our days, you think about it, if we don't do anything about these symptoms, that's from day 15 to 28, right? So that's about 13 days out of a 28-day cycle. So the first 13 or so, you're pretty okay, right? But then the last 13, you're miserable. And then you have your period, which is not really pleasant either. Like, yeah, some of the PMS symptoms might go away, but like then you have the cramping and the bloating, or maybe not as much bloating, but you have definitely the cramping. For me, like I said, those backaches, as I was recording it, I'm like, they're not so much during the PMS, but when I have my period, it is crazy. So the cramping, the backaches during your period. So it's like if we're not managing these and we're not mitigating them, we basically spend a third or 3/4 of our life, really. Maybe that's, we're not always in menstruation. So, I mean, I would say a third of our life is dealing with PMS symptoms. That's not okay. We have better things to do. We need to be showing up in our best, highest power and our best self. And we don't need to be worrying about, oh God, now I have a headache, or I have this mood swing, I'm struggling with anxiety. I know sleep is good for me, but I'm having trouble sleeping. So that's why I wanted to record this episode today. This could probably, I could probably do a whole workshop on this, and I definitely will. I definitely will. I'm thinking about putting together like a webinar. Actually, let me know if you'd be interested in that. Just message me on Instagram. Let me know that you listened to this episode. Let me know if you'd be interested in a webinar where we could really go deep into understanding your period. Not just so for today, we're just going to be talking about like basic things from, your nutrition, a couple supplements we'll talk about. But if you want to know like everything from like your workouts and your, maybe a more in-depth thing about your meal plan or whatever, let me know. If after this episode, if you still have more questions, let me know if you'd be interested in me hosting some type of a webinar or mini training or mini series or something like that. I would definitely think that it's necessary. So right now I'm trying to cover a lot in a very short period of time. Okay. All right. So with that said, it is normal to have PMS. The thing that I was literally chuckling out, like laughing out loud. I was reading this article, which a lot of this information that we're going to talk about today is from this article. It's on Today's Dietitian. It's a magazine. This is actually like all the way from 2016. So there's definitely things that have been updated. So I kind of just went there as a refresher. But the point is that this article is a really great article, and it's a really great resource. It was written by a registered dietitian, Dana Pittman. It's really, really great. Anyway, so I'm reading this. Let me get the sentence because I just like literally chuckled to myself. It's like, is this real life? Like we as women really got it rough. Like so cause less than 20%. No, let's not start there. It says, so it's widely known that certain foods, such as alcohol, salt, and sugar, can make symptoms worse. Then it goes on to say, but in order to help your clients, blah, 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 blah. But like, let's just repeat that. It's widely known that certain foods like sugar, alcohol, and salt can make symptoms worse. I'm sorry, but when you're PMSing, I know when I'm PMSing, what do I crave? What do you crave? I crave sugar, salt, and alcohol. It's literally what I go to. Like, there's literally nothing better than a glass of wine, a piece of dark chocolate, and like I eat gluten-free because of, I'm sensitive, like a gluten-free pizza. Like, that's exactly what I want on a day that I'm PMSing. So you're telling me that by me doing that, it's making symptoms worse. Okay. So I wanted to kind of address why that is, so to help you understand, and then help you to understand that you can still have salt, sugar, alcohol in moderate amounts, depending on what your definition of moderation is, and still hopefully be able to mitigate some of this PMS. But maybe during your cycle, like right before your cycle, during the PMS time, maybe we really do think about, instead of having that glass of wine at the end of the night, we have a glass of maybe like a cup of tea, or something like that. So that's just an example. But I thought what was super interesting is that our bodies, they want what they want. So let me back up. As much as that's going to make it worse, our bodies are really smart, and sometimes we just have to learn how to respond to it better. So when our bodies are saying, I want sugar, what they're really saying is, I want carbohydrates. And there's a reason behind that. Carbohydrates provide tryptophan, which is a precursor for serotonin, which helps to boost our mood. Right? So if we're in kind of a wacky mood, or our neurotransmitters aren't really firing off in the way that they want to or need to because our hormones are fluctuating, or we might be, some people are more sensitive and their neurotransmitters aren't able to signal as much, especially during PMS. So serotonin directly affects mood and behavior. So our body is saying, I want carbohydrates because I'm not in the best mood right now, and I need you to make me in a better mood. But your body is not saying, I want simple carbohydrates and I want sugar. It needs complex carbohydrates that also are provided with B vitamins, which we're going to talk about in a minute. So that way there's nutrients there, so that your body is getting the carbohydrates, it's releasing that serotonin, and overall going to help in the long run. Now, the reason why we don't want to have more of those refined carbohydrates, especially during PMS in excessive amounts, is because that will actually increase the fluid retention, so making bloating worse. Definitely fluctuations with the scale, although we know it's water retention. For some of you, that might really piss you off. It might really put you in a bad mood. The other thing that it potentially could do is actually, like the refined carbohydrates in excessive amounts might get you to excrete more magnesium in your urine. And decrease magnesium and depletion of magnesium is actually often associated with higher anxiety and sleep disturbances. So if we are struggling with our anxiety and our sleep and we're PMSing, instead of us going for, cakes and cookies, although you know you can have that. If you've been listening to my podcast for a while, I know you know that you can have that. And I think that if you heal your relationship with food, you learn that having, one or two cookies is not the issue, right? It's when you have those one or two cookies and now you just ate the whole box, that's an issue, right? But all that to say, I think when your body is saying, I want carbohydrates, it's really saying, I want complex carbohydrates. I need to improve my mood. One thing that I teach my clients during PMS when they're having these extreme symptoms is to double, aka quadruple down on their self-care. So if you're already neglecting your self-care, your chances of healing and mitigating these PMS symptoms are like slim to none. PMS is associated with poor physical and psychological distress. That's what the research shows. So although there are ways and things that you can do, there's supplements you can take, we're going to talk about that. If you don't have the foundation of a healthy lifestyle, and your eating habits are kind of all over the place, and you're not taking care of your stress, you're not engaging in stress management techniques like meditation or journaling or yoga, or not putting excessive amounts of things on your schedule, and you're doing things that you enjoy, you're not super stressed, then chances are you're going to be less likely to have these symptoms, or they're not going to be as severe. But you can take all the supplements in the world, but if you don't have the basics covered, chances are this isn't going to help. So before I speak to that a little bit more, I thought this was super interesting. I did want to just share this with you as well. There's a lot of research that talks about like BMI and obesity and how that's related to higher PMS symptoms. I don't really care for that stuff, to be honest. I like the research that more looks at like body fat percentage, and lifestyle factors. So there was one study. Let me pull it up here. Okay. So in this study, women between the ages of 18 and 30 who experienced weight cycling had a 36% higher risk of PMS versus those who didn't report weight cycling. So that's not about obesity. That's not about BMI. It's showing that those who cycled their weight. So you lost weight, you gained it back. You lost weight, you gained it back. You lost weight, you gained it back. You're at a 36% increased risk of PMS. Well, at least those in the study were from the ages of 18 to 30. Okay? That's a pretty high risk. And I believe it because those extreme weight losses and then them gaining them back and then losing them and gaining them back, you are screwing up with your hormones. So it makes sense, right? So that's why this foundation of just a healthy lifestyle, a healthy relationship with food, eating balanced meals, it's really going to benefit you in so many areas. It's why I love doing what I do, because when I'm teaching people how to eat, which is so crazy that we have to teach people how to eat in 2021. Yeah, that's this year. It's just crazy. It's like it should be so normal and natural. You look at any dog, any cat, any animal in the wild, they know what they need to do. They're not stressing over, what am I supposed to eat? How much should I eat? When should I eat? When should I sleep? When should I work out? They don't think about that stuff. They just do it because it's natural, because they're animals and so are we. We're mammals. But we live in a society that just, messes all that up for us, and that's why we don't know what to do. But that's why I'm here. That's why I do what I do. All right. So anyways, all that to say, our bodies are talking to us and they want things, but what they really want is nutrition. Okay. So often PMS is associated, like I said, with these poor physical or psychological distress. So like just overall, just like the lifestyle isn't balanced. They're not engaging in physical activity. They're not sleeping regularly. They're not hydrating with water. That's often the case. Now, if you're doing all of those things, great job. Super proud of you. What could be lacking is certain nutrients in your diet. And that's what I wanted to kind of talk about today. So let's talk about some natural remedies for you to be able to manage these PMS symptoms. Now, first thing, we already addressed it. Sugar, alcohol, caffeine, and sodium might need to be limited. particularly refined carbohydrates. We might want to limit caffeine. You might want to limit maybe in the afternoons because it might affect your evening sleep. And the sodium we want to limit because of the fluid retention, as well as the bloating. And I think we already covered why we want to limit the refined carbohydrates and the sugar. So what do you eat? Well, you want to make sure that you're eating foods that are rich in calcium, vitamin D, your B vitamins, iron, and magnesium. Because these foods have been shown, or the lack of these foods or deficiency in these nutrients have been associated with increased PMS symptoms. So what I wanted to just kind of rattle off a couple of these, make sure that you're getting these foods in your diet. You'll notice that some of these foods have, the nutrients are in many of these options, meaning like, for example, calcium-rich foods, nuts are filled with calcium, but they also have some of the B vitamins like thiamine, for example. So calcium-rich foods are mostly dairy products, so yogurt, cheese, kefir, milk, right? Dark leafy greens, broccoli, broccoli, spinach, kale, nuts, any nuts are fine. Grains, whole grains are best. Beans, and salmon and sardines. Those are calcium-rich foods. Now you'll notice vitamin D, another vitamin D rich food is salmon. So salmon has both vitamin D and calcium. There's trout, tuna, mushrooms, eggs, or fortified foods. So things like milk, for example, is fortified with both calcium and vitamin D. Magnesium-rich foods, dark leafy greens again, nuts again, seeds, fish again, beans and legumes, whole grains again, avocado, and low-fat dairy again. So if you notice, a lot of these foods, they have more than just one nutrient that we need. So that's really cool, right? Riboflavin is a B vitamin that you can find in fortified cereals, almonds, organ meats, whole grains, wheat germ, mushrooms, soybeans, dairy products, eggs, and dark leafy greens. Once again, those dark green vegetables. Why do we think we dietitians, we recommend them so much? Thiamine-rich foods, another B vitamin, fortified cereals, legumes, nuts, and red meat. And vitamin B6 rich foods, meat, poultry, fatty fish, whole grains, fortified cereals, soybeans, avocados, baked potato with skin, bananas, and peanuts. Okay? So, if you don't understand by now why dietitians recommend dark green vegetables, we recommend nuts and seeds, we recommend lean proteins, we recommend fatty fishes, we recommend low-fat dairy, we recommend bananas, by the way. Everyone's like so afraid of fruit, but there's benefits. Also, bananas are a great prebiotic, which I feel like I should do an episode about that. Baked potatoes, love baked potatoes. I love baked potatoes with the skin because that's where the fiber is. So a lot of these foods are recommended all the time. Eggs, you don't have to fear eggs. If you didn't know this by now, if maybe you're just following me, the yolk is nothing to be feared, okay? Eat the yolk. It has a good source of vitamin D, as we just identified. If you're on a weight management plan, you want to monitor, if you're monitoring calories, you could always do, like I do, one egg, and I'm not trying to manage my weight, but I like to get my fats from like avocado and salmon and stuff like that. So I often do one egg and a half a cup of 100% liquid egg whites. So that's a little bit of a sidebar. All that to say, if you're eating a balanced diet and you're incorporating some, if not 75% of these foods, I think that you're good to go. Now, if you're doing all these things, so you're limiting your caffeine consumption, you're limiting your sugar, you're limiting your salt, you're limiting your alcohol, you got your lab work back and everything's normal, there's no deficiencies, you're incorporating all of these foods that are rich in calcium and vitamin D and magnesium and B vitamins, you're doing all these things and you're still experiencing these symptoms, then there is one supplement, One supplement. Let me back up. The supplements from like vitamin B supplements, calcium, vitamin D, if you're not getting them through food, magnesium, you can take a supplement. I recommend talking with your doctor. If you want to message me on Instagram, there's certain things that I could recommend just by having a few conversations back and forth, but your doctor, if you're working with a registered dietitian currently, they'll probably be the best person to talk to you with about it because they know more about you. But the bioavailability, meaning your body's ability to absorb these nutrients, are always going to be best through food. Okay? But if you can't get it through food, then you might want to consider taking a supplement, and you could do that. So any of those vitamin or mineral supplements that I just listed, if you don't think you're getting enough through food, then you could take a supplement for it. Now, the one supplement, it's an herbal supplement that I want to teach you about today. I've actually never recommended it to a client before because I just started reading up on it. And maybe I'm new to the party. Sorry. But I haven't been able to try it myself. I wouldn't recommend something just because it worked for me, it worked for you. I would read the research about it. So the research is clear that cassberry, which is a fruit from the cass tree, is believed to stimulate the pituitary gland to produce the luteinizing hormone. Here we go again. Me and my science speaking language. I don't know Latin. Which signals the ovaries to produce progesterone, thereby normalizing the ratio of progesterone to estrogen and relieving PMS symptoms like bloating, irritability, and even depression. So its effects also have been associated with that of fluoxetine, which is an antidepressant. All right. So this is an herbal supplement that is scientifically proven, and the science is more conclusive, whereas the other research, the other data is more inconclusive. There was even a randomized controlled trial of 170 women who showed a 50% decrease in PMS symptoms, including irritability, mood swings, anger, headache, and breast tenderness, with only 20 milligrams of cassberry versus the placebo. So cassberry is an herbal supplement. You can find it, honestly, probably most stores like Amazon, they have it, which is not really a store, but it's like a virtual store. It's like the store in COVID. You could probably get it at like your local supermarket. I like the brand Gaia Herbs. It's just one that I trust. And you'll notice that the recommendations for those are like 300 milligrams per capsule. I don't think it would hurt for you to take the full capsule, but all that to say that even if you can find one that has as little as 20 milligrams, you might even start to it might even help you to relieve some symptoms. So I think that's just like really cool that there's something out there that could potentially work. Personally, what I have recommended for clients is magnesium, and I think I've talked about this on an episode before, and that shows pretty great promise in sleep and mood. That's like super, super helpful. I recommend the Jigsaw brand if you want a pill form. If you want a liquid form or like a flavored form, I recommend OMG Nutrition. They have a magnesium supplement that it's like flavorful. It just goes in your water. Now, the things that we didn't talk about today, because it's a little bit outside of my scope, but I just want you to know that if your symptoms are really severe and they really do affect your anxiety or depression, that there really are treatments like cognitive behavioral therapy that can really help. And there's nothing wrong with going to therapy as long as you're also addressing your nutrition. You guys know I am a huge advocate for supporting your mental health. So it all works together. And in those severe cases, you might be prescribed a medication to help with to help you to stabilize your mood. And there's really nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in that, like at all. Our bodies need what our bodies need. And so we want to make sure we are taking care of ourselves in addition to taking these supplements or taking a medication for our mental health, whatever it is. We want to make sure that we're addressing those things in addition to just overall self-care. Okay? So I feel like I just rambled a lot. It's a lot of information. So I wanted to give you like a quick recap for now, but we just brushed the surface of what I could teach you when it comes to your cycle. So if there was anything said here that you want further clarification on, definitely let me know. I just want to quickly remind you or recap to you that these fluctuations, these hormonal fluctuations are completely normal. At the same time, you do not have to suffer with the extreme PMS symptoms. Learn your body. We also didn't talk about the fact that during your menstrual cycle, during when you PMS, your body image, your body dysmorphia also skyrockets. Because we're looking at ourselves in a distorted view, because we're tired, because we're fatigued, because we're anxious, because we're irritable, because we're frustrated, because we're cranky, whatever it is. So when we look at ourselves in the mirror, we don't like what we say. Our eyes play tricks on us. This is when I've been talking for too long. I cannot speak. And so that's something else which is why I also recommend therapy or working with a body image coach or healing your relationship with food, because it's all connected. It's all connected. But with that said, it's important for you to know your body, to know your mind, and to know yourself so that you can figure out ways to manage this. This is, but depending on when you're listening to this, this isn't going away for quite a while. You got to learn to work with your body. Stop trying to work against it, or stop being surprised by when you get your period and you're like, oh, that's why I almost ripped his head off. Like, oh, that's why I haven't been able to stop crying. Like, we don't need to see blood for us to recognize what's happening. Track your cycle. Oh my God, I can't believe I didn't recommend that. Track your cycle. Track your cycle. There's so many apps for it that you can look up. I like My Days. Even if you have a Fitbit, your Fitbit, the app will come where you can track it. There's an app called Flow. There's so many apps out there. Figure out which one you want. Please track your period. Please track your period. It is going to help you so much in knowing your body and knowing your cravings and not fighting them, right? So I'm going to just recap and also say, eat balanced meals, sleep, hydrate, move your body, take care of yourself, mitigate your stress, do all the things to take care of you, build that solid foundation so that you can easily identify when it's a PMS craving versus, oh, I'm craving because I'm not eating enough, or I'm craving because I'm not eating enough protein, or I'm not eating enough complex carbohydrates, or I'm not eating enough fiber, or I'm overeating on foods that don't make me feel well, or whatever it is. Let's be able to identify clearly that it's a PMS craving versus just a craving because maybe you're just lacking essential nutrients, and maybe you're just not eating balanced on a regular basis, or not taking care of yourself on a regular basis. There's a lot of things that just basic nutrition can help to heal. All right. So with that said, I don't know if you know, but I have a Healthy Livings Foundations course that is super helpful with this. If you're struggling with just building that solid foundation, my Healthy Livings Foundations course would probably really benefit you. If you liked this part, like me kind of geeking out on the science, I don't get as scientific in the course, but I do help you to understand why I make certain recommendations. I do go through the science in a lot of things. There's so many different modules. There's a module about mindset. There's a module about macronutrients. There's a module about tracking. There's a module about navigating social situations, which I know we're probably not doing as much right now, but we are starting to open up, thank God, in the world of COVID. There's a module about meal prep basics. There's a module about emotional eating. There's one about physical activity. And then the last one all about kind of building your tribe and building that group and building the accountability. It's really those are the basic components of what you need to really be successful. Without that solid foundation, anything after that is really difficult to achieve. So spend time building that foundation. The course is about a month. It'll probably take you about a month to go through. In a month's time, with the right mindset, you really can build a solid foundation. And if you need a little bit more time, you have access to the course for a lifetime. So I strongly recommend going to www.tipswithtony.com/courses and get started, get enrolled today. I'll put the link in the show notes. If you really liked this educational component to this episode, you're going to really, really enjoy the course. All right. If you have any questions for me, just message me, tipswithtony@gmail.com. I feel like I've been rambling forever. I hope you found this episode helpful. If you did, share it with a friend, tag me on your stories at tips_with_Tony. That's Tony with an I. And if you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, definitely hit that subscribe button. A new episode comes out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And when you are subscribed, you never miss a beat. All right. That is it for me today. Thank you so much for listening. As always, I'm Tony Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time.